Nonsense Word Fluency, or NWF. Nonsense Word Fluency measures the ability to identify and blend letter sounds using make-believe words. Nonsense words are used in this measure so that a student's familiarity with sight words will not influence his or her ability to identify common letter sounds individually or blended into made-up words. NWF uses make-believe words to determine if students understand the alphabetic principle and basic phonics. NWF uses consonant-vowel-consonant and vowel-consonant non-words. The goal is for students to read non-words as whole words rather than segmenting them. This is administered starting at the middle of the year kindergarten through the beginning of the year second grade. Progress monitoring of nonsense word fluency should be done as needed. The benchmark student materials for nonsense word fluencies. This is an example from the beginning of the year benchmark grade 1. Notice words with all 5 vowels appear in each row. In NWF, we have 2 types of reminders, as-needed reminders and one-time reminders. As-needed reminders can be given as often as needed. Your 2 as-needed reminders for nonsense word fluency are, if a student stops and it's not a hesitation on a specific item, say, keep going. If a student loses his or her place, point to the correct space on the page. One-time reminders can only be given once. The one-time reminders are as follows. If a student doesn't read from left to right, say go this way and sweep your finger across the row. If the student says letter names, say the sounds, not the letter names. If the student reads the word first, then says the letter sounds, say read the word. If after the first row, the student reads letter sounds correctly, but doesn't attempt to blend or recode, say try to read the words as whole words. Please watch as I show the assessment and point out some key features on the assessment. This is Mr. Say. All the words in black should be read verbatim. If you'll notice at the top right, there's a gray box. This is a 1-minute timer. When you tap start, the timer will begin. If you'll notice these 3 flashing diamonds, that indicates my 3-second hesitation timer. Here's my scrolling word bar that I can click to move throughout all the nonsense words. If the student, if the student reads b, a, u, that shows the lines under the letters indicates that the student segmented. If I draw one solid line, that shows that the student blended. If the student reads k, av, I can tap the letter and that marks the letter wrong, so they inserted the wrong letter sound there. If the student self-corrects, I tap it again and that marks it as a self-correct. I can do the undo button, tap the undo button, and it'll take away the last thing that I marked. I can also do the whole word red button, and that gives the student whole word red credit. If you noticed, a few seconds ago, the screen lit up yellow. That indicates that there's 5 seconds left for the student to continue through the assessment. You'll notice that there is a gray, if the student reads the whole word jack, you'll see a slash that appears. This slash, if I click it, it indicates that the student inserted a sound. So they may have read the whole word, but they actually inserted a sound to the word. Once you tap done, the results are captured and the device takes you to the results screen. No further edits can be done. There are common scoring rules that you are going to have to be familiar with. If a student corrects a reading within 3 seconds, the student receives credit for the correct letter sound. This is referred to as a self-correct. Re-tap the letter to adjust the mark and see a green box with a small SC symbol. If a letter was tapped in error, tap it a 3rd time to clear the SC symbol, which was demonstrated earlier. The final reading only is counted towards the student's score for correct letter sound. Whole word read credit is only given when the student reads the whole word completely and correctly the first time, and he or she only reads the word once. I will go into further detail about the hesitation rules on the next slide. If the student has been reading sound by sound, mixing sounds and words, or sounding out and then recoding, allow 3 seconds. Then, tap the letter to score it incorrect and provide the correct sound. If the student has been reading words, allow 3 seconds. Then, tap each letter to score them incorrect, provide the correct word. If the student hesitates in the middle of a word, wait 3 seconds, then provide the correct letter sound and tap it to mark it incorrect. If providing the correct letter, sound, or word does not prompt the student to continue, say keep going. Here are some self-correct scoring examples. Example 1. Pim is read as pim. If a student first reads a sound wrong, tap it incorrect. If the student blends the word and corrects the sound, re-tap the sound to mark it as self-correct. The student will not get credit for the whole word read, but they will get credit for the correct sounds in the word. Example 2. Zub read as b. Underline any letters the student reads. Tap a letter once to indicate incorrect sounds. Tap any self-corrected sounds a second time. Here are some scoring rules for NWF. Example 1. Bach. If it's read as bach. If a student reads letter sounds in isolation correctly, draw a line or tap underneath each correct letter. Example 2. If mez is read as ez. If the student blends sounds together, draw a continuous line beneath the blended sound. Example 3. Jaff. If the student reads the whole nonsense word as a single word, draw a continuous line beneath all the sounds. A slash will appear to the right. If the word is read correctly the first time, without any inserted words, ignore the slash. We'll talk more about the slash later on. Example 2. Sek is read as s-ik. If a student reads letter sounds in isolation, yet does not read a letter sound correctly, draw a line under each letter and touch only the incorrect letter sounds. The red box indicates an incorrect sound. If mez is read as nez or nez. If the student blends some sounds together, draw a continuous line under the blended sounds and tap only the letters the student read correctly. The second full underline shows the student recoded the sounds together as a whole word. Example 3. Live is read as fit. If a student reads the entire word as a single unit, draw a continuous line under the word. Tap only the letter sounds read incorrectly. For repetitions, example 1, og, read as og. Letter sounds repeated multiple times are marked each time the student says them, but given credit only once. For example, if the student says og, underline the O and then underline the O and G blended together. The student receives credit for identifying both sounds, but only gets credit for the O once. Example 2. Pim read as Pam. If the student reads sound by sound correct, yet recodes the word with incorrect sounds, the letter for each incorrect sound must be tapped incorrect. The student will get credit for the remaining sounds in the word. Nonsense word fluency scoring is based on the final answer. For omissions, Look at example 3. Cug was read as k-g. If a student omits a sound while reading sound by sound, do not mark anything. Just underline and or tap. If a student omits a sound while reading sound by sound, do not mark anything. Just underline and or tap any sounds that the student does read. If a student omits a whole word, do not mark anything. Proceed to score with the next word the student reads. If a student omits or skips a whole line of words, move on to the next line with the student. Do not mark any marks on the words the student skipped. The next example is for sounds read out of order. Example 1. Cag read as g-ak. If the student points to each letter while saying it, he or she gets the answer right, even if the letters are said out of order. The purpose of this rule is to give students credit as they begin to learn individual letter-sound correspondences. Note this behavior pattern on the results screen. Use this information to determine instructional next steps. Example 2. Pev read as vep. If the student reads whole words, only correct blended letter sounds in the correct order count for credit. The student gets credit for the medial vowel if produced correctly. I mentioned earlier about the slash. This slide is going to teach you about how to use the slash. Example 1. Hith read as hift. If a student is reading sound by sound and inserts a letter sound, do not make any marks. Note this behavior pattern on the results screen if it is frequent. Example 2. If sop is read as stop. If a student is reading word by word and inserts a letter sound, no whole word read credit should be assigned. After drawing a continuous line, tap the slash button to indicate the inserted letter sounds. The slash turns from gray to blue when tapped to show that it is active. The student will not get credit for the whole word read, but they will get credit for the correct sounds in the word. Example 3. When students add a schwa sound, if peck is read as p-e-k. If a student adds a schwa sound to a consonant, it is not marked as an error. We do not mark incorrect articulation, dialect, or schwa sounds. After the assessment, the results screen will appear. This is what your results screen looks like. The score screen summarizes the student's performance on NWF, correct letter sound, and NWF, whole word read. CLS stands for correct letter sound, and WWR stands for whole word read. The student scores are listed above the score level bars. The position of the runner reflects the distance from the benchmark goal. Numbers below the bar indicate the cut points dividing score levels. This image is from kindergarten results screen. The bar is gray because kindergarten does not have a whole word read goal. The bars on grade 1 or grade 2 student screen will show both cut points and red, yellow, green. The students receive credit for one correct letter sound for each correct letter sound read in isolation or read as part of a nonsense word. If a student reads a sound correctly or self-corrects, the student will receive credit for that sound in the correct letter sound score. The student receives credit for one WWR for each nonsense word read correctly without first being sounded out. Sample 3, daff was read as a whole word read and gets 4 possible points. Sample 3, daff was read as a whole word and gets 4 of the 4 possible points. Sample response 4, daff does not receive WWR credit because it was first read sound by sound, not as a word. Whole word read credit is only given if the word is read on the first attempt. Sample response 5, DAFS, does not receive whole word read credit because the added sound means the word is not read correctly. Response 6, if the student reads DAF, DAF, that does not receive whole word read credit because the word was read more than once. If a student self-corrects and reads a whole word correctly, whole word read is not given. The word must be read correctly the first time. On the results screen, you can record additional information about the student by tapping Patterns or Motivation. This information appears on the Probe Detail Web Reports. Here are some things to remember about Nonsense Word Fluency. Nonsense Word Fluency assesses the alphabetic principle and basic phonics. To score Nonsense Word Fluency, you score sound by sound, blended sounds, and whole word responses. mCLASS is the score given for the number of sounds the student reads correctly. WWR is the score given for the number of nonsense words read correctly as whole words on the first attempt.